Welcome back to Addicted to Recovery, the podcast bringing you the truth about addiction. I'm Christopher White. I'm joined as ever by my dear friend, co-host and fellow recovering addict, Max Thomas. How are you today, bro?
I'm good, Chrissy. What? How are you?
Who have we got?
We have got, he's really dear to my heart, actually. He's my good friend. Kent. Thanks for coming on, mate. How are you?
Mate, I'm good. I'm a bit pumped up, actually, because I did, as you know, I'm counselling and mentoring these days. But mate, bizarrely, I got contacted by a couple of banks and a couple of charities. And I was, doing a little bit of talking with them. And today I did my first corporate speaking gig in London with Rainbow Trust Children's Charity and, 80 people. And look, guys, it's just another example of, of recovery and the gifts of recovery and these, where it can take you. It's virtually limitless. So
And received well?
Mate, really good. Yeah, really good. Mate, it was, there's a couple of people got a bit teary, in the audience, and they came and spoke to me afterwards. I talked about the death of my brother.
Yep.
I talked about addiction, and obviously a lot about, irrespective of whether it's addiction, alcoholism, or anything, any presenting issue. My belief is we can heal and recover.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So, mate, I'm good. I'm in a really good place.
Did you prepare for that, Ken?
Well, it's pretty easy. It's a bit like a share in NA in the sense of you tell one story, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was I told the story of addiction and the life messages from that.
Mm-hmm.
Things like, healing and recovery is definitely possible.
Yeah.
As long as you don't die, you're going to be okay.
And how you've changed as a person. Like our last episode was on 6 and 7, how we changed this process of change through coming into recovery, how we just have a physical change of who we are, what we stand for, all that sort of stuff. And it's just it was a lovely episode, wasn't it? The last one?
Great episode. The reason I ask, I've got a similar sort of thing coming up.
All right.
Mate of mine has a mental health awareness talk once a year, and they get a different person in.
Love it.
He was playing golf the other day and he's like, would you please do it this year?
And who's the crowd?
It's all employees of the company.
Yeah, that's a similar sort of thing to what he's doing. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit nervous, mate.
No,
that's why I was just asking, like, how did you prepare for it? What did you do? Just told your story.
Yeah. My advice would be go in organic, go in natural, tell your story, and then just the only thing I'd say is just give a bit of thought process to the audience and, who you are, for want of a better word, pitching to, and then taper the messages that way.
Yeah.
But, mate, 80% of what you're going to say is straight off the cuff because we've only got one story to tell, right?
Of course.
Our own stories.
Yeah.
And it is about change
and
where we are today.
Brilliant.
Before we start, I'd just like to say, look, Kent was my first sponsor, and I'll try and do this without getting teary, right? But I just owe so much to you, mate. Like my life today, with my wife back in my life, my kids back in my life, who I've become as a man it's not only down to you, but you were a massive part of my recovery, mate. Like we did step work together. I used to go up to Kent's flat once every 2 weeks and get honest and share about who I really was and the stuff I'd done in the past and how I can move on. And look, you taught me to share in meetings, your suggestions. It's changed my life, mate. It really has. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Look, I appreciate what you're saying, but as you guys know, we freely give away what was freely given to us.
Exactly.
And that's the way that it works. It's just that cascading intellectual property that just comes down through the generations and it lands in our lap and then we pass it on to someone else.
I'm doing that now. Chris is doing that now.
Correct. And can I take this opportunity to say, well done, you two. You know what I mean? Because what we want is to spread the message.
Yep.
To spread the message is that you can live a happy, fulfilling, contented life without drinking drugs, right? And if you're out there and you're listening, and you listen to you guys doing your podcast, we're saying, look, come in, find your tribe. So, all power to you blokes. Please keep going. It's very, very important.
That. Thank you, mate. I just went last night. I went to a Liam Gallagher gig up in London. With my wife was there, and my brother was there. He's in recovery. My wife's brother was there, friends and family, and I was dancing till 1 o'clock in the morning, sober as a judge, people around me. It was just, and I was just myself. I was in the moment enjoying it. And it was just like, I'm just trying to say to people listening, we can do these things. And I've been on stag do's and weddings and you name it. I've done so much clean. And it's just, I'm in the moment, Ken, and addicts really only understand what I'm saying here. I'd done those things before, but I was never there. Even my wedding day, I openly admit it. I was there, but I wasn't in the room. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't feeling that deep connection. I know you're big into your mindfulness, aren't you?
Massively.
And it's just, it's...
That's one of the things that held me back about coming into recovery and getting clean in the first place. I didn't think I would ever be able to do anything clean.
No.
I didn't think I'd be able to sort of insert myself into them situations that I'd grown to love.
Yeah.
Clean and sober, right? It's not the case. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't recommend it in your first 6 months.
No.
But after a certain period of time and you've done enough work on yourself and you've got a good foundation, rock solid recovery, you can do anything.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my sponsees today. He got really triggered. So he come up to Southend and he went back to Liverpool Street. He lives the other side of London. And he come past Hamilton Hall, right? And he was really triggered. He picked up the phone and called me. He was like, mate, I'm really triggered. I used to go in there and drink all the time. The sun's out. There's girls around. It's Friday night. The city's buzzing. I was like, well done for ringing me, first of all. And I went, look, you've identified that's a trigger. Avoid them places, right? And I went, I'll tell you what, in a couple of years' time, me and you will go to Hamilton Hall and we'll have a soda and lime together on a Friday night, mate.
Yeah, nice.
You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, sweet. So he's like, you got to avoid them things in the beginning, but after a while, you can do anything. I'm going to Ibiza next week.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Man, I just recently had a week in San Francisco, and I had a week out there, bit of spontaneous trip. Week there, I've got a week in Turkey.
Nice.
At the end of June, I've got 3 weeks in Australia with my son in the school half term and catching up with loads of mates and family and whatever. My girlfriend Lisa and I are probably going to Australia again at Christmas.
Yeah.
So, mate, you know, whenever Red Hot Chili Peppers are in the UK, we're there. We go. You know what I mean? Like, man, I'm doing everything I want.
Yeah.
But I just don't drink or drug today.
It's the opposite, right? Because the addiction stopped me from doing the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
This has opened up a whole world of possibilities, and I just don't bury myself with substances. It's like, it's a complete paradox. What I thought was going to happen when I got clean was that my life was going to be over. And the truth of the matter is, it began.
I tell you one question that some people ask, right? They go, oh, mate, is it a battle? Is it a battle every day?
Yeah.
I go, mate, I'll tell you what's a fucking battle.
Yeah.
It's a fucking battle. When I wake up, I'd wake up and go, how, when, where am I getting my drugs?
Yeah.
Cocaine. Every single morning. Yeah. I haven't gone to the toilet. I haven't checked the weather. I haven't done anything. I just wake up and go, I need cocaine. And I need it now. And I don't want to do it.
No.
So that's the daily battle. That was the battle. Mate, today I've got life's challenges.
Yeah.
There's no battles. There's life on life's terms. But now I've got the tools and the skills to deal with those challenges.
Yeah, I say exactly the same. It's like, oh, it must have been hard. I'm like, no. Active addiction is hard.
It's brutal.
This is easy.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there's work involved, right? It's not a walk in the park. But like you said, it was a war.
Yeah.
A daily struggle. And it's not like that today.
Yeah.
Tell us your story, mate, if you would.
Yeah, sure. I feel like I've been telling the story a lot recently, which is good.
We'll jump in, obviously.
Yeah.
Because, I'm talking to corporates and talking to all sorts of people. But basically, look, obviously an Australian. I grew up in central Queensland, small country town.
Whereabouts?
So a place called Rockhampton. So it's in
Rocky?
Rocky, mate.
Mate, I've spent quite a lot of time in Australia.
Right.
And majority of the time in Queensland.
Yeah.
I know where Rockhampton is.
Yeah.
That's all I was touching.
Yeah. Mate, whenever I say, when an English person says, oh, I've been to Rocky, and I go, yeah, one night, right?
Yeah.
Because they're halfway between Brisbane and wherever else you want to go to.
Yeah, Early Beach or wherever you want. Yeah.
Townsville, Cairns, Whitsundays, whatever. So I grew up there and, mate, just that stereotypical Australian upbringing, beaches, and a lot of my mates were on properties and whatever. And, mate, nothing to report. You know what I mean? Nothing to report. Mum and dad were hard work. Not a lot of money. Mum and dad were hard working. 2 elder brothers, and then good at sport, good at school. Always had a girlfriend. Always felt part of. Like I didn't drink or drug because I wasn't part of. I was part of. Left school, did a law degree. During that time, I threw myself into rugby. I played for Australia under 21s. I played for Queensland. I played for New South Wales. 1989, I played against the British Lions. Mate, there's no drugs. There's drinking. Oh, when I say there's no drugs, a bit of weed back in the day.
Obsessively playing rugby?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mate, I wanted to play for Australia bad,
Yeah.
and I threw absolutely everything into it.
Yeah.
And I mean,
You play for the Reds?
yeah, I played for Queensland.
Yeah. Big game that is, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's a game between New South Wales and Queensland.
Right.
Arguably the biggest rugby match in Australia.
Well, yours, if you don't get, you might be confused with State of Origin, which is
State of
rugby
Origin.
league. That was
It's rugby league.
That's right. I played rugby union.
Okay, yeah, I've got that twisted.
But mate, the rugby
State
league,
of Origin,
yeah, State
Queensland
of
versus
Origin.
New South
Massive.
Wales. Okay, so I've got it wrong. Rugby league is the number one sport in Australia,
Well,
right?
cricket.
Cricket.
Cricket's the number one sport, and then everything else. Aussie rules is big. Rugby league, then probably rugby union and football's growing.
Yeah, it is growing. I had a mate play for Queensland Raw, they're called.
That's it, Queensland rule.
He weren't getting paid much, not like over here, mate.
That's it.
So
You
yeah,
get
sorry, I
too much
interrupted you then.
So then I worked out I wasn't going to play for the full national team. Applied for a scholarship and went to Oxford Uni.
Wow.
And
As you do.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing that, people. I don't have any regrets, right? I've had an amazing life. Like it all, the wheels came off spectacularly later on in life. But not everyone back then. The Oxford Cambridge game, mate, 60,000 people at Twickenham, all sold out.
And you played in that?
Yeah, I played in that, and when I played for Queensland and New South Wales and Australian under 21s, and then I played for Harlequins in London. Mate, I've played in pretty much all the major stadiums in the world.
Wow.
Through rugby, so I had this amazing life, and then I got a job in the city. I was playing for Harlequins. I was there.
So
for
late
6 years.
30s?
Sorry?
You're late 30s now, are you?
Yeah, so I've stopped playing for Harlequins when I was 30 and then coached, assistant coach for another 3 years or something.
Was that all you did, play rugby? Did you have another job? Or it was
No,
just rugby
it was amateur. It was
Okay.
amateur. So I got a job in the city, but I had a job, money broking at a company called RP Martins, but the big job I got was as a foreign exchange trader at Citibank.
Yeah.
And I was there for 18 years. And again, there I was a foreign exchange trader and I rose to the level of director. And I'm going to just give some, just mention some money stuff because it's just to give some sort of perspective of where I got to, and then people can relate to the fall. So the most I ever got paid in 1 year was either $2 or $2.5 million US.
Wow.
Right. And so this is where I'm operating at. So you got to imagine I'm late 40s going Australian under 21s, Oxford University, Harlequins, director of a bank. Like, it's a life of achievement, but more than that, it was a life of really great experiences.
Yeah.
Some of the players I played with are household names, played with and against household, names. And then I'm at Citibank. Cocaine comes on the scene. I'm a recreational user. And it's just a direct correlation in my late 40s when I was struggling with life. I was in a country I didn't want to be in, with a woman I didn't want to be with, doing a job I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
I was cooked.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this on the way down. I got this text one day, and it was from this drug dealer in London. And he just said, all he said was, we're now 24/7.
Remember you mentioned
Jesus
before.
Right? Mate, my eyes, I was like a cartoon character of Tom and Jerry. Mate, my eyes were like, seriously like this. And I that feeling, I just lit up, and I was like, I rang him and I said, mate, 3 grams, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, Canary Wharf.
Yeah.
Right? Canary Wharf. And I texted him, rang him, he said, yeah, 3 grams. And for the next 3-4 years, 9 a.m. every morning. 3 grams. Wow. And sometimes I'm calling him back in the afternoon. So give you an idea of numbers. I was doing between 20 and 30 grams a week.
Wow.
I was putting 80,000 pounds a year straight up my nose. That's not partying, because I dropped, the isolation thing.
Yeah.
I dropped out of all scenes and social activity. And as a result, mate, my weight was plummeting.
I've seen photos of you.
Yeah, mate, they're shocking.
You use the same way I use, Kent.
Yeah.
From the moment you wake up, a little bit, every day, or a little bit all the time.
Yeah.
That's the way I use.
Yeah. And I was in the situation where, because of the money, the thing about all that money is that, first of all, half of it goes in tax, and then I'm putting a ton of it up my nose. So, I'm, wasting a lot of money. But I just realised that, I was just, it was all going horribly wrong. And so I was sitting at Citibank, and that's right, that's what I was going to say. With all that money, I was never going to run out of money.
No.
And the problem with that is that you're totally enabled.
Totally. Yeah.
So I've got money. I went to Citibank one day. I was on £200,000 basic 15 years ago. And I went to Citibank and went, any voluntary redundancies going? And they said, why? You've been here 18 years. Well, what's going on? I said, I'm cooked, fucking out. The truth was, I didn't want to go to work. Why am I going to work for? I'm using all day. Just use it and get rid of the job.
Yeah.
So I just canned the job. So sitting in Essex, I'm never going to run out of money. So I've got money, I've got time, and I've got access, right? And within 2 years, I'm sitting in a rehab. Yeah. Because at that point, that last 2 years, mate, I'm doing 6 grams.
How did that feel, Ken? That level of isolation, because I can relate to it.
It felt...
Did you normalise it?
I justified it.
Yeah.
I justified it.
Do you have kids by this point?
Yeah, they're young kids, mate. And you look back and it's just it's insanity. I had young kids and I justified, I'm in England. I don't want to be here. I've got a relationship that's not going any good.
Victim mode.
Yeah, and just all that sort of stuff. But I'll tell you, you said, how do I feel? And I was just trying to process that question. I felt really alone because I'm isolated, right? I'm just using by myself. I'm sick. I'm insane. I'm sitting in bed. I'm laying in bed. I'm jumping around the bed like Michael Jackson as the coke's raging through me, through my veins, and I'm wired up. I'm sweating out, right? And my heart is like boom, 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 boom. And I'm thinking to myself, fuck, I'm going to have a heart attack here. So what's my best thinking?
Do a bit more.
You got it.
Yeah.
Got it, I better do a line of cocaine here.
Yeah.
It's fucking mad.
It's insanity, mate. You're putting out the fire with gasoline.
Yeah.
So anyway, I go into rehab. Go into rehab. I'm 60 kilograms or 63 kilograms. I'm 90 today.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I went in 63 kilograms. So I'm 14 and a half stone or something like that. Went in 10 stone. I looked horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Mate, I 6 weeks in rehab. I come out, 8 days out of rehab, I'm relapsing. I'm in the Parkin Palace Hotel in Southend by myself for 3 weeks, and I am going like industrial by myself. And then I just had that moment. I had the moment that I wish for every addict out there.
Yeah.
I was laying in bed. It was 3:22 a.m. on the clock, and I'm laying there, and I'm just thinking about my life, and mate, just that, the mental shift.
Yeah.
The spiritual awakening, the light bulb moment, the moment of clarity, whatever it was. Seriously, I literally just all the air came out of my body, and I went, I'm fucking done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I was defeated.
Yeah.
I was beaten, right? And it was like, you know what? You fucking win. You win.
Yeah.
All right? You
Surrender,
win.
eh?
Yeah, surrender.
Surrender. You win. And you said about it's not easy in early recovery. I was fighting, I reckon, or I was committed. And with that focus that I put towards my education, that focus I put towards rugby, that focus I put towards banking, mate, I put it towards recovery. And I said, here we go.
That focus you put towards using, don't forget that one.
Yeah. That's made same thing, exactly.
Yeah. Did you go back into rehab or?
No, that was it. And mate, that was the 18th. My first clean day was the 18th of June, 2016. And I have not had a drink or a drug since. So next month I'll be 8 years.
Nice one, brother.
And the first thing I want to say is I cannot tell you how grateful I am. And guys like you, guys like you guys and all the girls and guys, Narcotics Anonymous is my tribe.
Yeah.
I do a bit of AA, I do a bit of CA, but narcotics people, mate, fucking insane. You know? And I just love
that's my lot.
Oh, mate, they're my lot. Like
Yeah.
the black humour.
Yeah.
I'll say, mate, tell me a story. Tell me, well, we were here and we did this. And you're like going, that is insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. But that's my type of, people. Yeah. So very, 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 very grateful. Really, really grateful and thankful, yeah.
So what did you do when you got into the rooms? Tell us about that. What was your experience around that?
I went to a CA meeting at Queen's Park on a Sunday night, and I didn't feel it. And I thought, there's a bit too much. There's really nice cars in the car park, and there's some stuff that sort of took me back to the city.
Bit of ego going on.
Anyway, someone said to me, go to NA in Vange Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Open road.
Yeah.
Oh, mate.
Still there now.
I'd still go every now and again. I drop in, and that place is dear to my heart.
That was my first meeting.
Oh, and I heard, some guy was saying he'd get on the heroin and set himself on fire and run down the street. And I'm a city user. Like a Michelin star restaurant. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The next time I'm hearing, I'm thinking, fucking hell, like this is a bit tasty. This is a bit serious.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I saw proper street using, and guys that have done the heroin with the legs still seeping,
injected in the groin,
all that sort of stuff, and I learnt a lot about the consequences, and that was the best thing that happened to me, was going to Open Road Vange NA, because it humbled me.
But with all
I needed to be humbled.
With all those differences, Kent, because I was the same as you, city boy. The house, the wife, the kids, all that sort of stuff, even though I didn't have them early on. Money in the bank. But so there's lots of differences. What I'm trying to say is there's lots of differences to the people that I sat in meetings with in the fellowship. But when the homeless guy I sat next to started opening up and telling me and the room how he felt internally, I felt exactly
100%.
the same as him. And that's 100%. Where the connection was. And they say in the rooms, listen for the similarities, not the differences, for that very reason, because it's very easily to separate yourselves in the rooms.
I'm not like these. These are not like me.
Exactly. I never used like that. I never put needles in my legs or my arms and my neck or whatever it was. But when he started, I've had it and that's why they suggested do 90 meetings in 90 days, because the relatability and the connection I felt in those meetings with people that were completely different from me was so powerful.
Yeah, you might look different, you might sound different, you might use different, but your thought process, your feelings, and everything associated with it is identical. Your disease is the same.
That's it. So when I have told my story, right, I get feed. Some people say, "Oh, my story is completely different to yours," right? And I have to speak to people after meetings and sometimes say, "Listen, mate, let me just make one thing clear. I might have achieved all those things, but when I sat in that rehab, I was broken. I had everything and I had nothing. Nothing. I was alone. I was lonely. I had a massive hole in my soul. I was in a deep hole that I didn't think I'd ever get out of. And so I said, it's not, as you say, forget about all those labels and all those identities. I said, I'm not above anyone in NA. I'm not below anyone either. I'm just walking beside, people. And as you rightly say, that identifying with that self-loathing, that self-pity, that emptiness, that darkness, there's no way out, I'm going to die, I'm fucking this up, I'm fucking that up, That's the identification, and that's what we relate to. And then, of course, on the top of that is recovery.
Yeah, of course.
And that's what we can relate to.
What I wanted to get to was, so obviously childhood, adolescence, early 20s, late 20s, you achieved all these things, right? So for me, I feel like I was born with this disease, and my behaviors and my thinking and my actions were off key from when I was a child. How do you feel like you relate to that, or do you not relate to that coming up? Because it was almost like you were a late bloomer.
Correct.
As such.
Correct. And that is true. I don't feel that I was born with it, right? But I definitely feel that, okay, so I did a bit of weed, put it down. Did some pills.
Yep.
Didn't really affect me.
Yeah.
Alcohol, whatever, right? The risk I ran was that I was a risker.
Mm.
I was, mate, we've got a party here, Ian. Of course I'm in. We're going skiing. I'm in. We're going to do this. I'm in.
Okay, bit of
right?
like adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I love life.
Yeah.
I want to try everything. The risk I ran was that if I did like a particular drug, we talked about it 5-10 minutes ago,
Mm.
I was going to go with it with the same focus.
Yeah.
And that's, you picked me up on that. You said that focus that I had with, law degree,
Yeah.
rugby up in the city, I took that same focus, and that was the risk I ran. It wasn't so much that I was born with it. The risk I ran was that if I got the taste for something,
Obsessive compulsive, right?
fuck, mate,
Yeah.
I was going to be in a lot of trouble,
Yeah,
and
okay.
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't identify. I don't have that feeling that I was born with it, but again, born with it, not born with it. You and
Doesn't
I, we
matter.
all ended up in the same place.
That's exactly what Nick said. Nature, nurture, doesn't matter.
No.
I heard a great quote, right? A lot of us are trying to figure out why.
Mm,
Why am I an addict?
Mm.
Why did this happen to me?
mm,
And it's like, I heard a great analogy. So the guy's house is on fire, yeah? The fire brigade turn up. He's standing there with the hose, ready to blast it at the house. And he like, open the thing, like shoot the water at it. And he's like, no, hang on a minute. We need to find out how this fire started.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's
like,
right.
No, you don't, mate. Put the fire out.
That is good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Put the
I like
fire
it.
out. It's like,
I like
that
it.
is the most pointless exercise at that moment, which is
Yeah.
just like, why am I an addict? Was I
Yeah.
born with it? Was I not?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
We're in this
Yeah.
situation, deal with it.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We all came to our knees,
oh,
and now
absolutely.
we're on a journey of building ourselves back up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how we got there. I was just curious because I was fucking off key from early.
Mm.
But I hear that. I hear
Yeah.
that a lot. People say that. But there's so many influences, right? Like, how many people do we know that were born into addictive families?
There you go.
Mum and dad are drug addicts or criminality or something.
Mhm.
And I've learned a lot about, social conditioning and social influences and that sort of stuff. So, mate, it's been an amazing journey, and what's happened in recovery for me has blown my mind
Mm.
as to the where I've landed today.
You mentioned your kids before. What's the relationship like now?
Oh, mate, it's hard to talk about my kids without getting emotional
Yeah,
because
same.
I look back and I think that I came, within an inch of dying
Mm.
and leaving, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old without a father. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So if that's your point of reference, then when I'm with my kids now
Mm.
and feel their love and connection, it's mate, it is priceless.
Yeah.
It's absolutely priceless. My relationship with my kids is great. And when I say that, kids,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Patience, tolerance. We were talking about that before.
oh, like they're different. They're growing at different. They're growing physically. They're growing mentally. Mine are 14 and 11, and so now they're starting to question a bit of authority, and
Yeah.
and I'm sort of going like this classic example, right? So I'm going, I want you to be independent, think for yourself and all that sort of stuff, and da 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 da, right? And then I said, right, we're off to Australia next year, and my daughter says, no, I don't want to go. And I go, darling, it's my family. You got to understand my culture. And she said, Dad, you told me to be
Yeah, there you go.
have my own voice, so I'm not going. And I go, fuck,
And this is the
Like-
14-year-old.
11.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, mate, but answer to your question, the greatest gift of my recovery is being present and available and being the best version of a father that I can be.
Yeah.
Not perfect,
Mm.
not angelic, right? But just modeling them in a positive way. That is by miles. That's
Yeah.
the greatest
That's a
gift.
great
my
way of
recovery.
putting it, the best version of a father that you can be.
Yeah, the best version. I'm not the father of the year. No, I'm not the father of the
Mm.
year.
Do they know you're in recovery?
Great question. I had to sit down with them. I've had a couple of very, very precious, poignant moments with my children. So they didn't know anything because, as you know, when you're doing
course.
drugs, you go into a toilet or you go somewhere.
Yeah,
you're
sure.
not drinking alcohol in front of them, right?
Mm.
But so they didn't know the story. But because I put out a website and I go
Mm.
on social media, obviously I had to speak to them before they heard from someone else. So I was sitting around a table last year and I said, guys, and this is tough. It's really, really hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life because as a father, you want to be modeling good things, doing
course.
the right thing,
Course.
being ethically and morally and correct and da. And I'm about to disclose, a major vulnerability in my past. So, I told them that, because they knew I was studying. I'd studied for 2.5 years to get this therapeutic counselling diploma.
Yep.
And they knew I was studying. And I said, guys, I'm studying. And there's a website out. And, the reason I studied was because I had a problem with cocaine. Didn't go into great detail. And I said, look, this is an open conversation.
Yep.
So you can speak to me at any time about it. I said, I wouldn't be, telling your friends or anything like that. I said, but I need to be open and honest, with you and transparent and whatever. Mate, what happened was my daughter, she's 11. She was 10 at the time, actually, I think. She was sort of looking at my son, who's 3 years older, for a bit of guidance. Like you can see, like, what's going on here.
What does that mean?
Help. Yeah.
That's right. And Joe, because he's 13, 14 and, what they see on TV and popular culture, and I think drug education in schools, whatever as well.
Definitely.
So he was on cue and he could see I was struggling a bit, right? Just at the end, because I wasn't going to cry, but he could see I was like, Anyway, mate, he's come around. He's got up off the seat. He's come around and he's put his hand on my shoulder and said,
Jesus.
He said, Dad, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Dad. He said, look, you're doing a really good thing these days. You're helping people. He said, Dad, we love you. We love you, right, mate? And the thing about it in that moment is that that's how far I'd come. You know what I mean? I've gone from sitting in a rehab, didn't care if I lived or died. Didn't have the bravery to kill myself, but didn't care if I lived or died. And now I've got my son, acknowledging, that I'm being a productive and acceptable member of society, spending my life in a worthy cause. And that's that love and connection.
And Ken, you're demonstrating to them it's okay to be vulnerable as well. I know you said it was a tough situation, and you said you wanted to come across as this dad who's got it all on a what am I trying to say there? You've got it all going on, and you haven't got any issues. As a father, we want to try and be the best father we can be. But I think my kids know about vulnerability because I've opened up to them, and we do gratitude lists around the table sometimes. When I turned 5 years clean, they did a gratitude list for me and framed it about stuff they're grateful for me about me, and that just blew me away.
That's good.
And what we're trying to say is coming into recovery has allowed my kids to learn it's okay to talk about how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Definitely.
I love my dad to bits and he did the best job he could and a fantastic job, but I didn't get those life lessons. Do you know what I mean? I didn't.
I love my dad, but well, the truth is, and we've had a chat about this. Oh God, that was another thing. I had to sit down and tell my dad.
I was going to ask that.
Mate, I did cry at that one. But my father was emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
Because he was of that era. Don't cry.
But that's quite a common theme with addicts as well, though. It is.
Is it?
I hear it a lot
Right,
in the rooms that the father figure was emotionally unavailable, and that approval for the father was rife within within the child, and you're always trying to obtain that approval. But yeah, go on, keep going.
So my father, sometimes we'd be sitting there, something would come on the TV. Like this was when I was still in active addiction. I'd be sitting in Australia with him, and something would come on TV about some bloke who's, cocaine addict. He'd go, and druggos. And I'm sitting there going,
no.
like, Jesus, like, okay, yeah, druggos, like this sort of stuff. And anyway, I was about 5 years clean sober, and my mother died when I was 3 months clean sober, so 8 years ago.
Oh, really? Sorry.
And she didn't know anything. My mother, mate, I had this situation. None of my work colleagues knew, none of my friends knew, none of my family knew. I was absolutely massively secretive user, but I robbed my mother of her peace of mind. So I'd go back to Australia, and probably in the last 3 to 4 years of going to Australia in the back end of my addiction, I'd turn up a stone lighter.
I was going to say, they must have seen it.
And Mum's going, what's going on? And I said, I'm under a lot of stress and everything. I'm, addicts, right?
Because you looked a lot older as well, though, Ken, didn't you?
I looked great. But at my 50th, which was 10 years ago, my father was 80. He was 80, and he looked better than me. Someone said to me, a mate of mine said at my 50th, said, mate, what's going on with you? I said, what do you mean? He said, put it this way, your father looks in better shape than you.
Mm.
Anyway, so I went back to Dad. So I made this decision that I was going to tell Dad. I wanted, pardon the pun.
And how clean are you at this point?
5 years.
Okay, yeah.
But
Good
he's
chunk.
like, but Dad was back then. He was about 84.
Mhm.
You know, he's 89 now. You know, he's 84, 85. And Mark, my brother, said, "Why do you want to tell him?" I said, "Mate, I want him to know who his son is."
Mm.
I said, "Because Mum departed this earth without
Didn't know.
knowing exactly who I was." And Mark said, my brother said, "Okay, fair enough." So I sat down. Mate. Any conversation which starts with, "Dad, I'm not the son you think I am." Any conversation starts like that, you go, "This is going to be fucking good."
Here we go.
So you gotta put yourself in his shoes, right? He's seeing his frame of reference is, my son did a law degree and Australian under 21.
Yeah, on paper.
You know, like exactly. I'm proud of my son, whatever. And I'm about to deliver him a message saying, "I'm a drugger."
I'm a druggo, mate.
Yeah, that's it, mate. You know those guys on TV? I'm one. You know what I mean? I was one. Anyway, I'd like to say I was laughing like this when I was telling him.
Yeah.
I lost it. I was crying. You know, the funny thing was, right? I'm crying. It's just terrible. Like I said, "Dad, I did a lot of drugs. I did cocaine. I'm a cocaine addict. I've been into rehab." Mate, he was sitting looking at me like, mate, like I'd just spoken Chinese to him for the last 10 minutes. Like he was just, you could tell his brain just was not computing what I was saying. It was coming, like I'm speaking Australian, so I'm speaking English to him, but it's just getting, like it's just not landing.
Yeah.
Right?
He's not saying a word.
Fuck, mate. He was like, he's like, mate, you could see him like, he just couldn't, mate. He was
Couldn't
like,
deal with the
mate,
feelings.
I don't think I just
Yeah.
just
Just get on your mic a little bit.
he just
Sorry.
couldn't. He just could. Anyway, in the end, I just stopped at the end. And I said, "So that's it." You know, I said, like, that's the story, sort of thing. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at him, right, and he goes, "Well, like, you know, mate, you're in a great position now to be a good father."
Wow.
And I thought, that'll do me. Done.
Yeah, it's a
right?
mature
That's it.
answer.
And I've never, and you know, the thing is, right, but like you said about my kids, I'm modeling with my kids, I'm modeling truth. I'm modeling, I can get vulnerable, that we do make mistakes, but you can recover. No mask, no role play, be genuine, be authentic. That's the messages going out. So with Dad, you know, he said, like, you know, it's a great opportunity for you to be a great father.
Mm.
No doubts, since that time,
Yeah.
that conversation, he and I have gotten a lot closer.
Yeah,
we
lovely.
were close,
Yeah.
but it's gone to a new level.
Of course, it's the truth.
It's that place, right?
Yeah.
You felt relief after that?
Oh, mate. At
Yeah.
that point, everyone on the planet who needed to know
No.
knew.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that meant that I was now completely open
And honest.
and honest.
Mm.
And did it feel good? Absolutely, mate.
Yeah.
I say to people, and people, you know, laugh when I say this, I go, I'm happy with who I am, right?
Mm.
I'm happy to. If someone doesn't like bald-headed Australians, I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm not doing, like, this is it. Don't like me. I can't present as anything else.
No.
And what a great way to live, right?
Yeah.
You know, this is it. If you don't like me, it's okay. I'm not being offensive. You know?
No,
I had a similar moment with my dad. Not similar, but just one of them moments that took our relationship to the next level, right? So I was still in active addiction when I was at home.
Hmm.
He saw the worst of me. I stole from him. It was a real bad situation. And he was devastated. I'm his baby. Right? And he didn't want to see that. And I remember I got clean. He dropped me off at rehab. He took one last chance on me, put me in treatment. And thankfully I stayed clean from then, right? But I come and saw him after I came out, and he was like, "Are you done? Are you going to stay clean now?" And I said to him, "I can't promise you that I'm going to stay
Of
clean."
course.
I went, "But I can promise you I really want to." And he was like, "Oh, that's different." He's like, "You always say, 'Oh no, I'm never using again.'"
Mm.
But there had been a little shift in my
Honesty shift, yeah.
Yeah.
I was being honest. I can't tell you if I'm never going to use again.
Yeah.
If you ask me today, I can't tell you that I'm never going to use again. But I'm telling
Correct.
you, I ain't going to use today,
Correct.
No.
and I do not want to use.
No.
And it was that little shift. And from that moment on, like, he called me just a minute ago when we were sitting down to start recording. I talk to my dad multiple times a day. Our relationship is great.
That's enough.
He does loads for me. If he calls me, if he needs a favour, he calls me.
Wow.
Because I say yes.
Fantastic.
And I'll be there when he needs me to be there.
What is your clean time?
3.5 years.
What's yours?
5 and a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with your father, he's proud of you?
100%.
Oh, mate, that stuff just, mate, seriously, it just rocks me. It's about, because it's about, one of my big things is about, in recovery now, it's about love and connection. Life is about love and connection. All the materialistic stuff it's all impermanent, whatever, but that rich, raw, robust, colourful love, right? That a father and a son has, a mother and a son, whatever.
I'm brimming with it, Ken. I'm brimming with it.
Mate, and I'll get this in before you. Mate, you look in sensational shape, son. Seriously. I don't know whether to keep talking or get over there and start snogging you, mate. Seriously, you're off the charts, mate. Seriously, the change in you, I mean, but the change in all of us, right?
No.
Mate, yeah, but you, what's his name? What are those brothers in Australia? What's their name?
I don't know.
Go on, mate. Who are they? What's their names? Come on.
Hemsworth, brother.
Hemsworth.
Yeah, that's it. He's a Hemsworth.
Mate, I thought, walked in there one day and I was going, fucking hell, what's his first name?
Chris. Yeah, well, look, so that's it. One of them's incredibly handsome, the other one not so much. We'll give Max Chris.
Yeah.
He's the best one.
Mate, you listen there, but the transformation.
No, it is Chris.
Yeah.
From you.
I've known you since you come in, mate, and it's the transformation.
But look, this is part of it, right? I eat well.
Yeah,
I train hard.
Yeah, that's it.
I look after myself. I take vitamins.
Yeah.
I've got I take vitamin C. I take a multivitamin.
Yeah.
I take vitamin D. I do zinc, magnesium, omega-3.
Yeah.
I take the vitamins that I need, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I'm getting the right supplements. I eat whole foods.
Yeah.
I train 4 times a week.
Yeah, mate, it's great.
This doesn't just happen. You put the action in. But I learned that stuff in
Recovery.
We
say, Chrissy, though, our outsides match our insides now as well.
Yeah.
There's no point looking great on the outside, and then internally you've got that void.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say on that is that when I was in active addiction, bad led to bad, led to bad, led to bad, right? As in, I'm doing coke, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm not regular at the toilet, I'm not doing any exercise, I'm not appreciating nature. I am isolated from my friends, my family. I'm as poor a version as a partner I could be to my ex-girlfriend. I'm not present and available really for my children, right? Then you switch it all over and isolated. Then we come into this community called Narcotics Anonymous. First thing for me was put on a bit of weight, get healthier. Come on, mate. Just because I said what you said, you don't have to get the guns out, mate. Sun's out, guns out. Look,
them compliments made me hot.
but good leads to good leads to good, right? And you said, mate, my sleep is a lot better.
Yeah.
I went to the gym, put on some weight. I'm eating better. My patience and tolerance is much better. I'm more, I would like to say, more enjoyable, clearly more enjoyable to be around.
Yeah.
So good leads to good leads to good.
What a great way of putting it. Bad leads to bad leads to bad. Good
does,
leads
mate.
to good leads to good. And that's the story of my life.
Yeah,
it's literally the story of my life. It started off with a couple of bad things and then it just snowballed. And now it's going back in the other direction. I started off with a couple of good things and now it's like baby steps, right? I'm not telling my sponsees, right, you need to be watching what you're eating. You need to be getting in the gym. You need a job. You need a career. I'm not telling them that. Baby steps. I started training 8-9 months ago. I think if I'd taken anything else on up to that point, it might have jeopardized my recovery. Get your recovery right. Get that good solid foundation. And then you can start
Very
adding.
well said.
You can start adding.
Yeah.
Can we talk about your brother a little bit? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Your experience around that, and because I know I've heard
The loss of my brother.
Yeah, I've heard you share recently around that, and you've had
yeah.
a few experiences and moments, haven't you, around that? So.
Yeah. So Scott. So just very briefly, Scott. Scott was 2 years older than me, and we had a big first 15 game, big grand final. It was on a Sunday, and I was 16. And Scott had been in and out of hospital, and we had this. We were on this. Went away to this retreat down on the coast to get prepared for this game. And Saturday morning, someone said, your father's here. I said, oh, what he's doing here? So I go up, I jog up, and he's on this sort of bluff sort of thing overlooking the ocean. And I said, what's up? And he turned around, he had my mother's glasses on, these big glasses, female glasses, and he took them off and his eyes were red. And I just knew intuitively. And I said, it's Scott, isn't it? And he said, yeah. And I said, he's dead, isn't he? He said, yeah. And my whole world collapsed because at 16, it's like when people talk about their first love. The reason the first love hurts so much is because you've got no point of reference before that.
Yeah.
So your heart gets broken for the first time. You can't refer to the previous time your heart got broken. So my brother dies. Mate, I've never had grief. I've never had loss. Certainly not, someone who loves so much. Brother. Correct. So I fell apart. But, I've got a number of sayings, you'll never know how brave and courageous you can be until that's all you've got is to be brave and courageous. And we get up. There's a spirit amongst human beings. We don't want to die. And the sun comes up the next day and you get up and you go forward. There's a resilience and a strength about us. And so I went on with the rest of my life. But the interesting part about this was I'm sitting in rehab and someone's talking about their brother and I just burst out crying. And anyway, a therapist said, I think, what's going on? I said, no, I haven't got a clue. He said, I think we should do you up for trauma treatment. Mate, I'm fucking drug addict. I mean, I'm up for anything, mate. Anything. I'm up for anything. I'm up for anything but drugs. You know what I mean? Like, I think isn't that how we work in here, sort of thing? Anyway, so I go and sit there and he says, right, go back to when you're 16. I'll go into semi-meditative state. And he said, where are you? And I said, 15 Grey Street, Rockhampton. Who's in the house? Mum, Dad, Scott. Describe Kent. Mate, I used to rock a pretty good mullet back in the day, so that was my signature look. So anyway, mate, chicks dug it. So anyway, and I said, look, I had a mullet, and I said I was in good shape. I was playing a lot of rugby and swimming and running, And then he said, is Scott there? And I said, yeah. And he said, do you want to say something to Scott? Oh, mate, just lost it. And Scott got bullied. Mark and I were very similar. My eldest brother, both good at sport, both good at school, always had girlfriends, Scott, short, fat, thick glasses, no good at school, no good at sport, vicariously lived his sporting career through me, but the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul, but he got bullied. And so I tried to protect him from the bullies as we were growing up. So I'm sitting in there with this therapist. He said, Scott, do you want to say something to Scott? And I said, I'm so sorry. I let you down. I failed you. I could protect you from the bullies, but I couldn't save you. And I let you down your hour of need. And I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. And then he calmed down for a bit. And the therapist said, is Scott saying anything to you? And I just smiled and I said, yeah. And Scott said, mate, you couldn't have saved me. You weren't a doctor. I had an incurable disease, and he said, Kent, it's time to let go, mate. It's time to let go. It's all over. The war's over, right? Walked out. There's this hallway and had these like spotlights on it. No, mate, I just thought that my head was going to touch the ceiling. So what I make up of that was I think I got relief and got unburdened by something. And that was the first time in recovery that I realised that this recovery caper had a lot more about it than just putting down drink and drug.
Yeah. Oh, don't even scratch the surface, man.
Correct. And then I modelled law degree, sport, certificates, cups, degrees and, all these things, certificates and whatever. And next minute, there's this thing called spirituality coming in. I'm going, whoa, this is a bit interesting. Next minute, I'm watching sunrises and sunsets and, birds holding themselves in the wind. I'm going, what the fuck? How do they do that? And all of a sudden, I just had this opening up of my mind and inviting in spirituality. So I processed Scott's death. Yeah. And I've let that go. And again, another gift of recovery that, the number of gifts I've had, whether it's relationship with my kids, whether it's processing Scott's death, whether it's setting out as an addiction counsellor doing a load of social media.
Yeah.
Next time I'm getting a phone call by guys and girls in their 30s and 40s and saying, will you mentor me?
Yeah.
I said, okay. Man, I'm mentoring a guy in the Philippines. I'm mentoring a guy in Singapore, guy in Sydney. You know, one's a lawyer, one's a banker, one's an engineer, one's a property developer, working at Mind, mental health charity,
Mhm.
volunteering there. Mate, some of that stuff is,
Powerful stuff.
that's
What's
heavy
your
duty.
website, mate? If anyone listening wants to get in touch.
Yeah, Kent Bray, counselling and mentoring.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'd have private clients. So I did private clients. Most of it's online. I'm employed at Bury St Edmunds Rugby Club as a mentor to, you know, the rugby players there in their 20s. But the thing that's just come on the radar recently, and this is where I'm going to with this is, like you guys doing this podcast, right? You don't know what's around the corner.
No.
You know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you're thinking, oh, well, 3 years ago, you were making sure you don't pick up a drink or a drug, right? So next
I was
minute,
in A&E.
yeah, there you go. And next minute, mate, you're doing a podcast, sending a message to the world. I just got these, you know, 2 people I used to work with, 2 different banks, said, come up, just want to have a chat. Went up, chat. And after an hour, they said, would you work with us, with the bank? I said, how? And they said, oh, we want you to do some motivational speaking and, you know, tell your story that
Drug awareness.
and, you know, vices and how can, you know, keep your eye on the ball and self-care and da-da-da. So now motivational speaking, and I set out to be an addiction counsellor. Today, I've got one addict. I work with one addict. I do a load of mentoring and this motivational speaking. So what am I saying here? My world continues to grow from a bloke that sat 10 stone, mentally fragile, in a rehab 8 years ago. So the message I'm saying to the viewers and the people listening to this is, fucking anything's possible.
Yeah.
Don't pick up a drink or a drug. Anything.
Do you
is
believe
possible.
that it was all meant to happen?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I do.
I do as well.
I said to a lady today, I said, look, you know, I believe, I was at this corporate event, I said, I believe I'm meant to be here today, talking to you, delivering this speech. I said, I believe for whatever reason, I had to go through all those highs, all those lows, get humbled.
To find the real you.
Yeah. I can tell you one thing categorically. I've never felt more comfortable in my own skin.
No, exactly.
Physically, spiritually, and mentally, I'm in the best place I've ever been in my life, given my age.
Yeah.
Right? Happiest? Yeah, mate. Content. Happy and content. Was there excitement back there that was good fun on the way through? Mate, absolutely. I'm not going to say that, you know.
Kent, we say this. We say, go and experience those things. Go and be the boss of a bank. Go and play rugby for Australia. But and then listen to your story, perhaps, and understand that you find your happiness. I mean, I don't think we're on this podcast to say just get into recovery and go through the motions. I think it's more go and experience life. But our experience around it is that doing what we do now and helping others makes us more fulfilled than any of those things. That's
100%. Like you said, what's this? Spirituality. And you start noticing nature and this thing that's like spinning around every day and it doesn't stop. And it's like, it's sort of, I can't get my head around it. That's why I'm like, the spirit of the universe and getting in tune with all living things.
100%.
It's like all these other things that human beings have created. It's not real. Yeah, like you said, great word to use. It's exciting. And it's like, this is new or this is fun. And it's good for your pride and your ego when you got loads of money in the bank and you're doing all these good things. But fundamentally what it comes down to is, like you said, content, happy. You can get that on your own, not on your own, by allowing spirituality into your life. You know what I mean? You don't need things to get it.
I'll say this again. I'll speak on behalf of a lot of people and thank you guys, right, for doing what you're doing, because I'll tell you for why. You said look, go and do what you got to do, right? But what I'll say is I'll rephrase it slightly different. Go and do what you've got to do, but just know if it goes wrong, you know where to come to.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. When you're aware that it's taken a lot more out of you then you're getting out of it, and the consequences are mounting. There's a thing called Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. See, I didn't know. I remember sitting in, I went to a meeting and a bloke said, I'm 21 days clean and sober today. And I went, fuck, this guy's 21 days. Like, this is like Jesus Christ. Like, this guy's like,
the Messiah.
Yeah. And then some bloke said, like 8 years to clean and sober. And I was like, what? And I said, I went up to him after, I said, can I just speak to you? And he said, did I hear you right? Are you, 8 years and you haven't had one sip of alcohol? My point is, I did not know you could recover. I thought I was going to die. I just thought I just had to manage my using till death. I didn't know. Even when I went into rehab, mate, I was sitting in rehab and the bloke goes, I'm sitting like literally, I was on this sofa like this, right? And I went, fuck. I said, mate, abstinence, that word abstinence. I said, does that mean I can never have a drink again? And he goes, yeah, mate, you're done. I said, that's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. That's actually, and mate, here I sit here, coming up 8 years, no drink, no drugs. It can be done.
Day at a time though, right?
Mate, never get complacent. I'm never complacent.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
You spoke about your early meetings. We're not coming to the end, but last 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
We like to do like a message for the newcomer. Like, what did your program look like when you first came in? Well, obviously, once you got it settled and nice and a solid foundation, what did you do on a daily basis?
Okay, so the first thing is that 90, 90 and 90.
Yep. Talk us through that. Why is that important?
Okay, so Dave, who we know, Dave, he said to me, one day I was relapsing and everything. I came, it was Van's meeting actually, like crying and everything. Seemed to be a common theme in my early recovery. And I came outside and Dave said to me, mate, how badly do you want this? I said, mate, I'm done. I don't want to do any more drugs. I'm done. He said, well, I suggest you do 90 in 90. 90 metres in 90 days. And I went, Jesus, mate, that's a bit extreme, a bit stiff, you know. And he goes, and there you have it. 1 minute you're telling me, inside the meeting and crying and whatever. He said, like, mate, this is, you're at the roulette wheel every time you.
I always say it's one of the most important things I've done in my recovery, if not the most important thing.
And the thing about 90 and 90 is you got to get embedded. Get in.
Dave's got a great saying. He says, no one ever died with a meeting hanging out of their arm.
I like that. I do like that. I like that.
Oh, yes.
And so I just threw myself into it. So my my
service.
Yeah, mate, everything. Like do 90 and 90 and talk to people. Get to meet me. Like, here's one for you. Go and ask people, how did you get, you're asking me, but I've said to newcomers, go over, what did you do? How did you do it? You've got to accept change. You've got to, I say to people, give it just throw 6 months at it. Like, you might be 20, you might be 25, you might be 35, you might be 45, however old you are. I just say at 6 months, just throw absolutely everything at this. Right, and just see how you go.
If you're not happy, we'll refund your misery.
And all that sort of stuff, correct. All the drug dealers, they're still there. The fucking pubs are still, they're all going to be there.
Yeah.
But if you really want it, and I know, so getting back to what you're saying, all the things that are suggested, 90 and 90, take phone numbers, ring people. Like your guy who got triggered, rang you.
There you go.
Mate, you're telling that story and I'm thinking, that guy's got a chance.
Me too.
Right? If he keeps doing that, he's got every chance. And so just get in the middle of the boat.
Home group?
All of it. Get a home group. Like get a commitment, whatever it is. Making teas. I mean, I saw you, Chris, making teas for ages. Both of you make me feel a bit guilty about how much service you guys do. And funny enough, clean and sober, looking like the English Arnold Schwarzenegger, made more corporate startups than than what's his name, Stephen Bartlett. So mate, you guys aren't too. Recovery's been good for you two, but it is getting in that. In all seriousness, get serious, get in the middle of the boat.
Action program, Kent, isn't it?
Make changes, mate.
Yeah, we can all talk a good game, but you got to walk it at the same time.
Of course you have.
I think a wise Aussie man told me that early on.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I was talking a good game for a lot of my years. When I came in, I had to start walking the walk. You just got. I agree with you. Middle of the boat, action, asking for help a lot of the time. I said it a lot of times when I did open my mouth for 3 months in the meetings, and he came up to me in the meeting, "What you shared tonight, mate, was the best thing I've ever heard."
He sat beside me, right?
I've heard him say that to people.
But he
as
sat
well.
beside me every Monday, and I'd go, "G'day, mate. How you going?" Chat. Meeting starts. Didn't say a word. I said to him one night, "Mate, tonight, what you said tonight, mate, that was absolutely." And he was like, he didn't say a word. I said it was cutting edge, mate. That fuck me. That was
You're going to
cutting edge.
change lives with that stuff.
And he was like, "Yeah, that's it." And he didn't say a word. He's going, "What are you on about?" I said, "Mate, talk." I said, "Because if you don't talk, we don't know what's wrong with you or what's going on for you. We can't help you if you don't talk."
Said that to my new guy. Sorry to jump in, Max.
That's right, mate.
He was struggling around opening his mouth in meetings.
It's hard though,
right? And I said
Early
to him,
doors, absolutely.
I said, say your name, say you're an addict,
That's what I did.
and say, I just wanted to connect with a meeting.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
Yeah,
That's it.
Right?
that's it.
And he did that for 2 meetings. Now he's sharing away open.
Mm.
You got to break your duck.
I share at most meetings, if not all meetings I go to now.
Mm.
Me too.
I need to offload.
I try to not share, but I can't do it.
You know, you said before, right? You said before how you just reckon, you're meant to be in this place at this time. Right?
Yeah.
How often does it happen to you where you're getting a little bit I'll bring it back to me. Sometimes I think, fuck, I'm a little bit off balance here. But, something's not right. And someone will give me a call and go, "Listen, you any chance of sharing next Friday night?"
All the time.
And I can't help but think the higher power's going, "You're not going to do it, so I'm going to fucking do it for you. I'm going to get you back into the room."
Just saying it on the last episode we was doing, these things happen to me all the time.
Yeah.
Too coincidental to be a coincidence.
Way too coincidental.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said to someone, I wouldn't mind getting into corporate speaking. And I was working for a charity, and this lady rang me up. I was doing some work for, mate, I'm working with this charity with parents of children who've had cancer events. So I'm working with this couple whose 14-year-old daughter had her leg amputated from the knee down.
That's heavy stuff.
So I just work with the parents. Anyway, they said, rang me up, I said to someone, "Geez, I wouldn't mind getting into corporate speaking. I wouldn't mind getting into corporate speaking. I wonder what happens there. How do you get into it?" Next minute, I get this email from this lady, said, "Oh, look, we've got our annual conference coming up. Would you like to come along and be the guest speaker for the day?" Going,
Yeah.
like, hold on. Come on.
Who have you been
You're
speaking
kidding
to?
me, you know?
Yeah.
Too much.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Look, coming to the end of the time now.
Beautiful.
What a brilliant guest.
Yeah, fantastic.
Fantastic story, Kent.
My
Look,
pleasure.
I've always held you in very high esteem. You've treated me well since I've met you. You know what I mean? We don't have that much contact, but whenever we do, you light up the room. And thanks for being a part of my recovery, mate.
Yeah, likewise. As I said, both of you, you're a credit to the program. The amount of service you do, and I cannot tell you. Please keep going with this podcast. Please get the message out there that we can recover, and people will hear this. And when they come into the rooms, what a great legacy for you guys that you got people off the streets into the rooms, restored people to sanity, restored families. Please keep going. You're doing
We're
great
going
stuff.
nowhere, mate.
Nice one.
Good.
Mate.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.